Brace yourselves, because General Nolenla Mkhwanazi didn't just respond to criticism, he dismantled it with a truth bomb so powerful it's reverberating across South Africa. In this viral interview, General Mkhwanazi, KwaZulu-Natal's police commissioner, sat across from veteran broadcaster Zoli Manambai on Newsroom Africa on August 22, 2024. What began as a straightforward question turned into one of the most explosive exchanges in recent South African media. Manambai didn't hold back. He asked why Mkhwanazi's officers were so heavy-handed, and whether his a fire-with-fire approach was even legal. What followed was not a defensive rant but a calculated and confident retort that revealed both the frustration and the reality of policing in a country gripped by violence. Mkhwanazi, without flinching, told Manambai that critics who claim expertise in policing often have no real understanding of what it entails. It's difficult, he said, to argue with someone who calls himself an expert and yet knows nothing about the field. He compared the situation to journalism, how he, as a police officer, would look foolish debating the nuances of broadcasting because he had no experience in that field. In the same way, he argued, it is unfair for commentators or so-called analysts to judge police operations without having been in the chaos of a crime scene or a high-risk arrest. He continued, explaining that policing is one of those professions everyone thinks they understand, yet few truly do. His tone was sharp but measured. He challenged critics to step out from behind their microphones and join him in the field, to volunteer as reservists and face the same dangers his officers confront daily. Come walk with us, he said in essence, see the blood, feel the fear, then judge us. That single statement cut through the noise and resonated far beyond the studio. It wasn't merely a defense of police brutality, it was a cry for understanding, even a cry for help. Beneath the fiery rhetoric, Mkhwanazi was admitting something painful, that South African police are not just fighting criminals, but fighting a system that has failed them. They are sent into violent neighborhoods with little protection, poor training, and minimal resources. They are vilified by the public for being too harsh and abandoned by policymakers when they break under the strain. What Mkhwanazi exposed was not arrogance, it was exhaustion, a confession that the line between justice and survival has blurred. The heart of his message was chilling: our police are operating in conditions closer to warfare than community service. South African neighborhoods plagued by gang violence and illegal firearms have turned into battlefields. Officers go out knowing they may never return home. So when critics accuse them of being heavy-handed, Mkhwanazi's response is, in effect, what choice do we have? It's not just about slapping a suspect or chasing a thief, it's about confronting armed syndicates with little more than courage and aging equipment. And yet, even in this chaos, society expects restraint, perfection, and legality. The contradiction is heartbreaking. Citizens want safety, but they despise the methods necessary to achieve it under current conditions. In another revealing interview with Professor J.J. Tabane, Mkhwanazi went deeper, peeling back the layers of South Africa's broken criminal justice system. When asked what 3 things could fix crime in the country, he didn't pretend to have a magic formula. It's beyond my control, he said bluntly. There are policies and laws that must be reviewed. He urged South Africans to vote wisely, implying that true change won't come from the police, but from Parliament. His statement was a rare moment of honesty from a high-ranking official, a recognition that policing is just one cog in a machine that's falling apart. We can shoot everyone, he said, acknowledging both the moral and logistical absurdity of using force to solve every crime. KwaZulu-Natal alone has a population of 12.5 million, and even if only 20% are involved in serious crime, the numbers are overwhelming. Prisons designed for 18,000 inmates now hold 24,000. There is simply no space left to lock people up, and yet the cycle of crime continues. Mkhwanazi explained how the entire ecosystem is collapsing, laws are outdated, prisons are overflowing, and the flow of illegal guns seems endless. He cited staggering statistics to make his point. In 1969, South Africa's Arms and Ammunition Act regulated about 99,000 licensed firearms. By 2004, the number had nearly doubled, and today, KwaZulu-Natal alone has over 192,000 licensed guns. But here's the horror: most of the illegal guns used in crimes were once legal. Criminals don't buy them, they steal them. Break-ins, carjackings, and home invasions are the primary sources of illegal firearms. Every gun stolen from a citizen's home becomes another weapon used to terrorize communities. In a gun battle, he explained, the one who shoots first wins. You may have a gun, but if someone points at you first, you lose. These words reveal the tragic paradox of South Africa's gun culture. Ordinary people buy firearms for protection, yet those same guns often end up arming the very criminals they fear. Mkhwanazi's tone carried both irony and despair as he described how citizens, in trying to defend themselves, are unknowingly fueling the violence. He wasn't just blaming the public, he was highlighting a systemic failure of law and governance. There are too many guns, too few safeguards, and almost no accountability for safe storage or reporting of losses. And when criminals are caught, they're thrown into overcrowded, crumbling prisons where rehabilitation is nearly impossible. Let's put his numbers into national perspective. South Africa's correctional facilities are built for about 107,000 inmates, yet currently hold over 157,000, a staggering 46% overcrowding rate. Only 4% of facilities are even in decent condition, while the rest suffer from leaking sewage, collapsing walls, and rusted gates. It would cost around 36 billion rand to fix the infrastructure, money that simply doesn't exist in the national budget. So when Mkhwanazi says he's overwhelmed, he's not being dramatic. He's telling the truth: the system is mathematically and physically incapable of handling the volume of crime it faces. Police arrest offenders who then have nowhere to go, courts are backlogged, and jails are bursting. It's a closed loop of dysfunction. And yet, amid this chaos, Mkhwanazi remains focused on duty. He doesn't glorify violence, he explains it as a grim necessity. His fire with fire strategy isn't about vengeance, but survival. When you're facing criminals armed with stolen military-grade weapons, negotiation isn't always an option. But he also insists that police take no pleasure in shootouts. It doesn't give us excitement, he said. There are just too many criminals. It's the voice of a man who's tired of burying colleagues, tired of public outrage that ignores the bigger picture. What makes Mkhwanazi's remarks so significant is that they expose the cracks in South Africa's democracy. The commissioner of one of the country's most violent provinces is publicly admitting that law enforcement alone cannot fix crime. That is both an act of bravery and an indictment of political leadership. He's essentially saying, we are fighting a losing battle. It's not just about catching thieves, it's about a state that has allowed poverty, inequality, and corruption to ferment into violence. When he calls on voters to elect leaders who will change the laws, it's a direct challenge to Parliament. He blames lawmakers for outdated gun control policies, weak bail systems that criminalize poverty, and judicial delays that keep people locked up for years without trial. He is not shifting responsibility, he's distributing it. He's asking South Africans to look beyond police brutality headlines and see the machinery of dysfunction behind them. The cop with a gun on the street is not the problem, he's the symptom. The real culprits, Mkhwanazi implies, sit in the corridors of power, drafting laws that no longer protect the people they were meant to serve. And that's where the political layer enters. The ruling coalition, the Government of National Unity, GNU, has been accused by critics of prioritizing political alliances over justice reform. Figures like Julius Malema have long argued that South Africa's governance has betrayed the working class and sold out to entrenched elites. When Mkhwanazi calls for systemic reform, he's echoing the same frustration, whether intentionally or not, that opposition leaders have been voicing for years. This is no longer about party lines, it's about survival. The deeper tragedy is that the police themselves are becoming casualties of this broken system. They are caught between the expectations of a fearful public and the failures of a negligent state. They are simultaneously heroes and villains, celebrated when they succeed and condemned when they falter. Mkhwanazi's candor breaks through this binary. He's saying, stop treating us like monsters or saviors. We are just people trapped in a system that's collapsing. It's a sobering reflection of South Africa's reality, where both criminals and law enforcers are products of the same societal decay. Listening to Mkhwanazi, one can't help but feel a mix of shock, empathy, and anger. His words force us to confront uncomfortable truths: our communities are unsafe, our justice system is failing, and our leaders are indifferent. The commissioner's fiery defense might have silenced his interviewer, but it ignited a national conversation. It made people question not only the methods of policing but the entire architecture of law and order. Because if the person in charge of enforcing the law says the system itself is broken, then the problem is far deeper than we want to admit. This isn't just about politics, it's about survival. South Africa's crime crisis is not merely a law enforcement issue, it's a moral, social, and structural collapse. General Mkhwanazi's interviews are not the rants of an authoritarian cop but the testimony of a man witnessing the erosion of the very foundations of justice. He's telling us that until laws are reformed, prisons expanded, and guns controlled, no amount of policing will save the nation. And whether one agrees with his tone or not, his message is undeniable: crime cannot be solved with bullets, it can only be solved by rebuilding the system itself. So, should we be outraged or understanding? Perhaps both. Outraged at the conditions that have forced our police into a perpetual state of war, and understanding of the human beings behind the uniform who are trying to hold the line. Because in Mkhwanazi's words, we hear not just defiance but desperation, a desperate plea for a country to wake up before it's too late. His response may have shut down a journalist, but it opened a door. The question now is whether South Africans will walk through it, or keep pretending everything is fine while the system burns around them.